Thank you so much for joining this morning. My name is Joshua Adidiji, and I'm the Knowledge Transfer Manager for Innovate UK KTN, coordinating the Global Alliance Africa activities in Nigeria. And of course, I have my colleagues also on this call, and we have a very interesting panel also joining us this morning. Just a quick one before we start. Tara, can we have this? Can we have the slide on? We want to make sure this session is as engaging as possible, but we also want to make sure it's well coordinated. So please make sure you mute yourself at every time. The other thing we want to make sure we achieve today is that everyone can find a way to connect as much as possible, which is one of our mandates as an organization. So feel free to reach out to people. If you find an interesting person on the chat, feel free to reach out. And we're happy to hear if there's any, a potential interaction happening from this event. Yeah, can you move to the next slide very quick so I can run through the agenda for today? All right, thanks, Tara. So today, just like what I'm doing now, just doing a quick welcoming and introduction, and that's me with my name. After that, we're gonna take, Sophie, who is the regional head for Africa. From our end, also present about our work and what we've been doing, and of course, the work that we do on the EDI. And then we are going to have Abiola Adebayo, who is an associate lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University. Also, just setting the scene based on his research work and his experience, in the business and innovation ecosystem. And then we are going to have the expert panel session. You can see the name of the panel we have, from Toyin, who is the investment director at Novastar, to Agugu, who is the senior program manager, at Faith Foundation, to Goshi, who is the lead for X Academy, and of course we have Emmanuel, who is an innovator and entrepreneur, joining, and of course we have Isioma Utomi, who is going to be moderating the session. And after which we're going to have open discussion where you can also ask questions. It's going to be more from the chat box if you can put your question there, but we're also going to be allowing some persons to unmute themselves. It's a closed meeting. We are not expecting large numbers, so we are going to be having hopefully about 30 participants in this event. Because one other thing we're going to be doing is a breakout session where we can have about 3 persons in the room, engaging and just learning, because one thing we're trying to do is to ensure that people can take beyond even the panel. People can take on some really interesting collaboration from this event. And of course, we're going to have a networking debrief, just quickly in 5 minutes to hear if you met someone interesting, if there are other ways you think we can help to make the collaboration helpful. Because from our name as a knowledge transfer network, we try to ensure we can facilitate, collaborations, in Nigeria and beyond Nigeria, in the UK, and some other interesting countries where you think you might find interesting collaborators. Yeah, so, and at the end of that, we're going to be having call to action, because one thing we want to do from this event is to have a recommendation for the larger ecosystem, which we have our comms partner in the call as well, taking some notes for the recommendation, and that will be put together in a blog or like a 1-pager or 2-pager document that we can share with everyone and with the larger ecosystem. And we believe this will not be the last. We can always engage further, based on the gaps and the opportunities, and of course the recommendations that we're going to be taking from this event. So for now, my job is done. But very quickly, I want to know where you are joining from. So if you could go to, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't move to the next slide. You can see the faces of our very interesting panel. So for everyone who is currently online, I know we have about 26 persons on the call now. Can you just go in the next 1-2 minutes, type maybe just a welcome, perhaps in your language in an interesting way, and let us know where you're joining from. I know we have people joining from UK, some joining from Nigeria, everywhere. I could see people from Ekiti, where I was some weeks ago, and some from Abuja. So yeah, just say hi, in the chat box in English or your local language, and tell us where you're joining from. We have 2 minutes to do that. I will read some as much as possible. Okay, we have Siaka Inyene. I don't know what that means. I'm so sorry. But that could mean I. So joining from Abuja, you're welcome. We have less than 2 minutes. If you could type very quickly. All right, we have Michael from LASU. Awesome, you're welcome. That's the Lagos State University. We have Israel joining from Lagos. Thank you. We have someone joining from United Bank of Africa. Thank you. We have Samuel from Ibadan. We have Ike from London. Thank you. We have Jacob from Lagos. And we have Matthew from Lagos. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Elizabeth from Ibadan. Let it keep coming in. I won't be able to mention all names. We have Sarah from Lagos. Yeah, so at this point, keep typing. I'm happy to say that during the event, I can mention some more. But because of our time, I would want to hand this over to Sophie West, who is the regional lead for Africa from the Innovate UK. Hi, Sophie. Is your microphone working?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Good
awesome.
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Tara, are you happy to move the slides forward? Wonderful. So as Joshua said, I'm Sophie West. I'm the Africa Regional Lead for Innovate UK KTN. I thought maybe what I could do first, I'm sure many of you know who we are as Innovate UK KTN, but I could do a quick introduction for those who are not aware of us. So as Innovate UK KTN, we are a member of the UK's innovation agency, Innovate UK's family, and our key role within the innovation agency is to connect innovators with new partners and new opportunities beyond their existing thinking. And our big ambition is to accelerate ambitious ideas into real-world solutions and drive positive change. So I think some of our statistics on the next page, I guess it's quite helpful to know. So within our network, we have about 46,000 organisations. About 72% of those are small organisations. Oh, sorry, Tara. And that equates to about 234,000 innovators within our network, both in the UK and globally. At the moment, we have a presence and footprint within every university in the UK, and that's expanding globally as we speak as well. Just to show some of our impacts of our work, about 66% of those who are introduced by KTN go on to collaborate, noting the fact that we're an organisation of about 250 individuals who are sector specialists. So we have specialist teams across all of the priority sectors of the UK economy. 42% of those who work with us reach their outcomes 1 to 2 years faster than they would do without the support of KTN. 60% have highlighted that they've had increased R&D investment as a result of our support, which equates to about £100 million per year in investment in R&D. What we do, we don't only work in the UK, but actually we work globally as well across about 36 countries. But one of our key projects, and which is why we're here today, is the Global Alliance Africa project. So this is a UK aid funded project that will run over 6 years. And the key aim of the project, again, as Joshua mentioned earlier, is to build new and stronger UK-African partnerships to maximise the creation of inclusive market access, funding and investment opportunities through innovation knowledge transfer. And our priority countries are Nigeria, South Africa and Kenya. I thought maybe I'd just do a really quick overview of actually some of our activities. As you said, I know we have members from Equity in the room, so I'm sure you'll be very aware of some of our initiatives. So we work across 3 pillars. So local to global, so open innovation, so supporting large businesses with solution providers who are outside of their usual supply chains to address an innovative challenge. Place-based innovation, so at the moment we're currently working in Equity State and really trying to support Equity to become the beacon of innovation. Access to funding, so we run collaborative R&D funding brokerage events. We recently ran a big event around a big energy call that's currently out at the moment, and we do some work around strengthening the investment pipeline as well. A new initiative that we're introducing this year as well is connected innovation, really looking at how we can forge those global innovation networks in priority sectors in Nigeria with the UK. And then we also will do this throughout deep expertise, both with UK, sorry, my microphone fell out, both with UK teams, but also teams that will be put in place in the countries as well. So that's a quick overview of our project. What I thought I would also do is provide a quick overview of some of the EDI programs that we run as KTN, Innovate UK KTN with Innovate. which we've been running for the past few years. One of our key programs is Women in Innovation. So this was launched in 2016 by Innovate UK to address underrepresented women in innovation, and it's been such a huge success. 70% increase in women applying for grants to Innovate UK since 2016. They now have a cohort of over 9,000 members. They've had 4 funding awards since 2016, which equates to about 5.1 million of funding. And I think the most important part is that we've really seen impactful partnerships and investment opportunities through our Women in Innovation community. I think on the next slide, it just shows some of our stats, maybe a little bit too much for me to go into, conscious of time as well. But you can see we've had about 24 winners in 2018, up to about 63 winners over the last few years. And what we really do is provide business and mentorship support for the cohorts, confidence building. There's lots of press and publicity coverage that we support through the programme. There's funding and living allowance opportunities, peer-to-peer support, which is a huge aspect of the programme, as well as the networking support that's going through Innovate. I think the next 2 slides, we just show some of the promotions. So one of our Amplifying Voices campaign, which has been a huge success for Innovate. And I think I've got one more slide, I believe, with the work that we've done around International Women's Day as well this year. We held 10 sessions on the EDI topics. We had 385 unique registrations, 49 speakers from all walks of life came to the events, and then 5 of the award winners connected to investors. So I hope this represents that EDI, and particularly focusing on enhancing women in innovation and promoting incredible successes, is a really key pillar of Innovate UK's work. And if you want any more information about the programmes, as well as the Young Innovators programme as well that we have in the UK, do feel free to contact our teams, and I've put the 2 links there for you. Joshua, I'll hand back to you.
All right, thanks, Sophie. Those are just some information relevant to this event, but if you need to know more about several other activities that we are doing, for example, like those that were in Abuja when the Energy Catalyst funding was launched on June 23rd, which is round 9 plus round 10 coming up, about a total of £40 million. Feel free to reach out if you need to learn more about that. We have a grant currently ongoing, which I know some people on this call are involved with, like Bio and several others who have been asking questions, which is the Agri-Food Fund as well, where you can access up to 20 to 30,000 pounds as an organization. So that's also ongoing, and it's closing on the 31st of this month. So if you need to learn more, if you're in that sector, please feel free to reach out, and several other opportunities. But then that's not just where we're here today. I think let's head to the content of this session. And one thing I would like to say is, I know we've all attended several sessions where the challenges, the gaps in the ecosystem are being discussed, but this is not just going to be another one. And that was why I said there are going to be action points, at the end of this session. And one thing we tend to do in Innovate UK KTN is to make whatever we do issue-based. For example, what we are doing in AKT currently, we needed to initially conduct like an innovation audit, which is available online. You can all read to know what is obtainable in the ecosystem, what are the gaps. And on the point of that was how we build, the place-based innovation project that is currently ongoing. So most of the things that we might be discussing today as well, we can pick some points in terms of, delivering on our subsequent, programs, or like just ensuring that we can manage and implement some of our activities better, and of course to know how to better support everyone. And one key thing as well that I want to say for everyone that is young person in the room, to greet everyone, happy International Youth Day. We tend to host this session in commemoration of the International Youth Day, even though that was last Friday 12th, but we recognize the fact that there are loads of events happening last week, and we thought it's best we have this week. And of course, because the 21st of this month is also our International Day of Entrepreneurs, if I'm right. So we thought it's actually best to have this conversation and yeah, to find a way we can support ourselves. So feel free to reach out to me, reach out to my colleagues if there's a specific way you think we can support your work. At this time, I'll hand this over to Abiola Adebayo, who is associate lecturer at the School of Business, Sheffield Hallam University, to just open the scene based on some of the research they are conducting, getting some data from the field as it relates to challenges innovators face, and of course some of the opportunities that exist within the ecosystem. Bayo, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. Thank you very much, Joshua, and good morning, everyone. My name is Abiola Adebayo, just like you said, and I am currently a PhD candidate at Sheffield Hallam University, and I'm also an associate lecturer at Sheffield Business School. So I'm just going to talk through about some of the challenges that I have actually highlighted in my previous research. I also did a master's of research at Sheffield Hallam University, and what I actually worked upon was to look at institutional voids in developing countries, and I focused on Nigeria. And so I know probably before now, majority of people would have highlighted some of the challenges that faces entrepreneurial ecosystem. So when majority of people would have said that, oh, the key problem is access to finance. Some people would have said the key problem is regulation. Some people would have said the key problem is lack of state support. So basically, when you look at all of these, one thing that actually stand out is it actually stems from one major problem, which is what we call institutional voids. And so what I'm simply going to be talking about is how institutional voids serve as a challenge and can also be translated into opportunities for innovators. Because when we say that innovation, entrepreneur is simply about plugging a gap and then transforming these gaps into a commercial scale that you can actually make profit from. So basically, looking at institutional voids, it is quite very difficult for us to talk about developing countries without talking about institutional problems, simply because of the gaps that we have between the developed economy and developing countries. It is quite very easy for me to sit on my laptop here in Sheffield and get a company registered, and within 2 days or 4 days, the postman will deliver my company registration pack to my house. It is also very possible for me to approach my local council here in Sheffield and say that I've actually noticed this problem. Are there different grants that you have that can actually support me? But when you look at it from Nigeria or other emerging economies, it is it's next to nothing for most of these things. So I'm simply going to be looking at how can innovators transform regulatory problems into opportunities. And the key thing that I'm going to look at is the role of lobby. We talk about innovators and there is no economy that can actually grow without innovation. Talk about Asia becoming the powerhouse of economy of the world currently. The only reason why countries like US, UK, or the rest of Europe actually ship jobs there is because they've actually developed that innovation capability, where it is quite easier for them to partner with other corporations in this part. So and then the only thing that allowed that to happen is because of the political governance and institutional frameworks that has actually they've actually put in place. So today I'm just going to focus on two things. In the course of my work, I actually find out that there are different ways that people actually respond to institutional voids. And one of the key things that actually stand out for me is what they call normative process, where people engage each other outside the formal structure. And in a way to actually solve the major challenge, I'm looking at how entrepreneurs can now focus on formatting this normative structure into what they can actually transform into another innovation idea. So for instance, if we talk about access to funding, it is very difficult for us as a startup, or probably you are at the ideation stage, to get access to funding in Nigeria. But you now have crowdfunding, and so how can we now begin to think about some other innovators perfecting this process of crowdfunding, because it is based on trust as well? Or when we talk about commercialization, how can we think about people partnering together, where you have smallholders, entrepreneurs now being able to support each other to commercialize probably an idea, that in order for them to actually scale on this. So currently I'm actually running at the back of my master's thesis, I'm running a PhD program now, and what I'm looking at is how entrepreneurs respond to all of these informal institutional voids and informal institutional structures, and how they can transform that to help them. So I think my time is already up. It will be I'm really looking forward to today, and it will be very good for me to actually speak to other people during the networking session. So thank you very much, Joshua, and I'll hand over the mic to you.
All right. Thanks, Abiola. That was really profound. Let's also see some of the gaps already, especially as it relates to where you started from in terms of regulation. The ease of doing business itself. I was looking at, while I was preparing for this, just looking at where we have, in the recent publication. I think Nigeria, we're currently at about 131 of 190. Countries that contributed to this when it comes to ease of doing business. You can imagine what you said about the ease of even incorporating your business, in the UK, and that's the essence of this. How can we cross-share, some knowledge in terms of what is working? How can we, I believe that's why we have some people also who might be close to regulators also on the courtesy. How can we also just walk through those bottlenecks, to the best of innovators locally? But that's not my own job. I think it's going to be the job of our able panelists today. And one thing we've tried to do is to make sure we have a blended kind of expert on the panel. So we make sure we have a senior investment person who is an investment director. Used to be, director at Acumen, and of course, currently the investment director at Novastar Venture. So you can know what I'm saying when it comes to cross-border investment in businesses. So if you have any question pertaining to investment, I was telling the panel the other time, I attended a session where we had investor and entrepreneur on the same panel, and there was this heated argument about, oh, you guys don't want to invest, and the investor will say, you guys are not ready. So there's always, and everyone you sit at your table, the investors, they are in this, both for impact and for profit, and they have the lens at which they look at things. So we need to see, what are the investors looking out for? Why are they not investing? They can tell you. And of course, as an entrepreneur, we can tell them today. That's why we also have Emmanuel, who is an innovator, and of course, an entrepreneur who is also a winner of the year 2021 Young Innovators Award of Innovate UK, to also share some of the challenges, from the entrepreneur's perspective. And also we have Agogo, who is joining us from Fit Foundation and Accelerator, who run also incubation program in Nigeria, to say, what are the challenges they face with every day engaging entrepreneurs, from one end to the other. And we also have Ugochi as well, who is going to be speaking from the ethics point of view, in terms of capacity building and ethics. Sincerely, I've worked with investors, and I see when they are conducting due diligence, some of these things, when it comes to business ethics, they look into to build that level of trust. So we are also going to be coming from that point. And we have our able moderator, who is the founder of the performance upgrade lab, Isioma Utomi, who is going to be moderating this session, and of course setting the scene for the panel as well. So I will hand this over to Isioma now. I would not want to introduce, I just did a quick mention of the names of our panel, but I will allow them to introduce themselves their own best way. So Isioma, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joshua. I mean, Joshua, you've done an excellent job setting us up for the discussion. Hi, everyone. My name is Isioma Otomi. As he's mentioned, I am the founder of the Performance Upgrade Lab. I basically help business leaders achieve their goals by improving team performance. And so you could say that my background in innovation is traditional. I've worked in fairly traditional companies. My early career was mostly in Fortune 500 companies, working in process improvement and innovation. But in the last decade, especially in Nigeria, I've been part of the tech ecosystem, particularly from a community building perspective. Basically, having a lot of conversations like these where people share the challenges in the ecosystem and the opportunities. So this topic, which is around accelerating youth-led innovation, is obviously very important. And I think I will just let the panelists introduce themselves. And so just a quick round of introductions so that we can get the conversation started. I think we could start with Toyin. Hello, Toyin.
Hi, C. Thanks. My name is Oluwatoyin Emmanuel. Excuse me, Olubake. As Joshua mentioned, I'm currently an investment director with Novastar Ventures, which is a global venture capital firm that's focused on Africa. We're currently invested in about 24 companies across East and West Africa. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Toyin. We have Emmanuel. If you could kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emmanuel, and I'm the founder of a product development company called Modernize, where I am launching a product called Tower into market. Currently just recently graduated in product design from the University of Sussex. And also, as Joshua said, I'm one of the Young Innovator Award winners for the year 2021-2022. And looking forward to the discussion today and meeting you all today as well.
Awesome, and congratulations on graduation and winning the award. We have up next Ugochi. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Isioma, and hello, everybody. My name is Ugochi Obi, and I currently work with the Nigerian Exchange, where I oversee the X Academy, which is the learning hub of the Exchange, and in charge of the capacity building efforts of the Exchange. So we partner, the Exchange partners through the Academy with SIPE, which is the Center for International Private Enterprises. Okay, and hence we are a member of the ABIN, which is the African Business Integrity Network, and also the Ethics First initiative, which of course focuses on helping organizations tackle corruption and also work on their ethics, and integrity measures. So that's where we come in. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And of course, we have Agogo. Could you kindly introduce yourself, please?
Okay, good morning. No, yes, we are still in the morning. So good morning, everyone. My name is Arowa Porido, and I'm the Senior Program Manager and Head for Startup and Youth Enterprise at Faith Foundation here. So basically, my job is to support entrepreneurs, especially those who have in the startup phase or idea phase, is to provide a various support in terms of our pre-incubation program and incubation program in partnership with a lot of agencies, both local and international. We are spread across. So we have provided these programs across 28 states here in Nigeria. And we do that through various means, which is training, mentoring, linking them to partners, such as funding partners and access to markets. I'm quite excited to be part of this wonderful session. I'm looking forward to a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So as you can see, we have a full panel. And as Joshua mentioned, we have a variety of perspectives. But I think it's only right, being that the conversation is on youth-led innovation, that we start off with our youth founder. So Emmanuel, so as a founder, as the Innovate UK Young Innovator Awardee, could you tell us a bit about your journey so far and what challenges you have faced and what opportunities you see?
Yeah, of course. So I remember before the award, it was almost one of my biggest challenges was having a mindset transition, in the sense that I would be essentially running a side hustle. I'm currently doing something that I'm interested in, or I'm designing a product that I quite like for myself or maybe for others as well. But in order to take it to the next level, obviously I need to get access to grant funding or some business support. And having that transitional almost change in mindset from going from a side hustle to a startup or business was quite challenging at the start. But by me being a part or being one of these awardees from the Young Innovators Award, it's definitely helped me in terms of, how to manage your finances as a business, thinking about your wider strategy, what your key objectives are, where do you want to be at the end of this year, and then where do you want to be in 5 years' time as well. And just the amount of mentorship, the amount of tailored business support as well, because we also get an innovation champion who is almost like our mentor throughout the whole program. So we always have someone to bounce ideas off and also help us with any future events that might be useful for our business and such. And I think it also definitely elevates you to almost a high level of networking as well, because they have a range of contacts that they can relay back to you, and also a range of different events that might be exclusive that you can always go to and attend and meet new people and help your business as well.
Definitely. Networking is a big part of what entrepreneurs have to go through and have to make, especially in the early days. So Tony, from an investor perspective, I imagine you meet a lot of founders. So could you please describe to us what are the common challenges you see in those interactions that they face, that you face as an investor?
Thank you, Steve. There are a couple of different things, and just to clarify, I think you're asking the challenges that we have as investors in selecting companies, or the challenges that the entrepreneurs have?
The challenges that the entrepreneurs have and how you help them handle it, or how you help them navigate the journey.
Absolutely. So one of the big challenges, as you would expect, that the entrepreneurs that we meet have is accessing finance. Folks who are growing businesses will often need a lot of capital to hire staff, to build their capacity, to acquire new customers, develop their products and things like that. And so they're looking for investors. And so as investors, that's an obvious part of how we help companies. Beyond that, for Novastar, and actually for a lot of professional investment firms, institutional investors, you also kind of help the entrepreneurs in their journey through building businesses, which will have a variety of different challenges. In some spaces, it could be navigating regulation and licensing. In some spaces, it can be figuring out the best way to build a product. It can be building teams, especially senior teams, which means finding talent. It can be entering new countries and, how do you set up a board in a new country? What's the corporate sort of structure you need to think of? Even back to accessing funds. Sometimes you help people think through what type of capital they need and who can provide the right sort of capital for them, and how to navigate through that. And at some point, it would be great to come back to that point about different types of capital, because it's a big area where there's often mismatches that lead to frustrations on both sides. And so, yeah, it's a whole bunch of different things. It's not just the money, because when you think about it, people don't need money so it sits in the bank account. People need money to actually do things. And so investors will provide the money, but then they'll also help companies with doing the things that they need the money for. And that's how we tend to operate.
Certainly, thank you. And so Agogo, this is actually a great point for you to come in, because as a youth startup expert, I can imagine you've seen a lot of the challenges that they face, especially in the early stages. So what would you say from your perspective as part of an accelerator, part of incubator programs, what would you say are the challenges that a lot of youth innovators face?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So dealing with a lot of startup, especially those who are still in the idea stage, you often find that most of them complain about funding. And so after so much interaction with them, you notice that funding is not actually the problem, but they don't really have that process in place to attract the right funding, and sometimes is a lack of ability to be resourceful with what they have. And so we try to walk them through the process of trying to be resourceful with what they have and be able to create a product or service like an MVP tool that can validate that their ideas have some market fit, and we'll be able, so by then it will be attractive for investors to put in their money. So most of them have funding issues, and most of them have financial illiteracy issues. And so we run them through our programs to ensure that they understand how, because money is, the financial aspect of their business idea is very, very critical. So they must understand some technical issues relating to finance in terms of their cash flow, in terms of keeping their financial record and things like that. Another thing that we find is that some of them do not have mentors. I mean, established and successful entrepreneurs who will take them under their wings. And this is very, very crucial in helping them to avoid some of the severe mistakes that some entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, have gone through in the past. So what we do is to connect them with our network of mentors to help them to navigate, especially the difficult environment in Nigeria. As you will agree with me, like Joshua said, not too long, Nigeria, in terms of our rating, we are still 131 out of 190 nations in terms of ease of doing business. So Nigeria, it's very, very difficult to run a successful business in Nigeria. So you will agree with me that you need all the support to be able to start a business, survive, and even thrive. So we provide a mentorship, and lastly, we also try to provide a business advisory. So business advisory, so we are in partnership with ACCA, the Association of Chartered Accountants in Nigeria, to provide them with advisory in terms of their bookkeeping, ensuring that they do their projections well, in terms of even valuing their business idea to be able to attract the right investments, provide them with that knowledge. Most of them will also work with some legal team to register their businesses, and will also provide them with opportunity to access to market and all that. So it's a whole package. It's not just about skill development, which is very, very important, by the way, but it's a whole support system that ensures that they move from ideation to starting a business and growing and up to scaling. So these are some of the challenges that we find dealing with entrepreneurs, and that is why we have tried to put a structure in place to ensure that we provide this support.
Thank you, Ago. That's a very well-rounded description of what accelerators and incubators are providing to the ecosystem for startups. So Ugochi, I know typically by the time people reach you, they're usually at a point in their business in developing their startup. But as Agogo mentioned, Nigeria is a very interesting environment to do business in, 131 on ease of business scale. So what would you say from your perspective? from your organization are the challenges that entrepreneurs as founders that they're facing in Nigeria?
Thank you, Isioma. Really, Joshua had mentioned something which was due diligence, and that for me is the biggest barrier. And I'm going to break it down a bit. We'll take it further into two, which is compliance and governance. If you notice, I didn't say corporate governance. I'm saying compliance and governance. And then when I say governance, what do I mean? Doing things right. In an environment that doesn't encourage, or people feel that the environment doesn't encourage, they just want to do quick wins. But if you really want to succeed, you've got to be compliant, right? You've got to think things through. What is your bare minimum? What's the bare minimum you must have, to succeed? Do you have that? Are you avoiding trouble? Have you looked at what could cause problems for you? Are you avoiding them, or you're not even thinking about it and just going straight up and like what Agho said, sorry, it said about all people are thinking of is just funding. I need funding, but it's more than that. And so again, are they adhering to laws of the environment, of the sector they are in, and then even do you have the license to operate in what you're doing? So those are different those are different things under compliance, doing things right, making sure that you have those things in place. Then you consider governance. Governance is doing the right things. Okay, where you talk about risk management, I'm talking about the risk management, the risk involved in your organization, in your sector, in your environment. That's what affects your business. Are you managing it? Are you thinking about the mitigations to put in place against that? How do you plan to do your stakeholders awareness? To be able to make sure that what you're doing is even going to succeed. Then I think that the most important thing is a triple bottom line thinking. Most startups and businesses don't have that. And the triple bottom line thinking, it's not just about profits. It's about your environment. What you're doing, is it affecting the environment? Is it affecting the people? And if you have all that, I think that would help, and in the succeeding of your business. So I think those for me are two things that are the biggest barriers.
Compliance and governance, very important. Thank you so much. And talking about those two things, I imagine compliance is a big deal when it comes to people handing over their money. For investors, whether local or foreign, it's a very big part of the process. And as Toy mentioned earlier, around the ideal types of capital that are required for founders, for innovators. Toy, could you expand a bit on that and the role perhaps of compliance, or the importance of compliance to you as an investor?
Sure, thanks a lot, Issy. And so I think to start with different types of capital, when you think of it, let me use a very simple analogy, right? If someone is particularly hungry for jollof rice and you offer them the best pounded yam available, they're not, it doesn't matter that pounded yam is great. Like, that's not what they want. If somebody is particularly hungry for lasagna and you offer them, the best abula, again, you're not really meeting their need. And so the way to think about investors, financiers, is that they operate across a spectrum. And at different parts of the spectrum, they have different appetites for certain types of risks. And in compensation for taking those risks, they have different appetites for what they want as returns. And so to give an example of the banks, the banks in a lot of economies, they get a bad rap for not doing as much as they should. And there's probably some truth in that. But the reality is, if you think of yourself as an account holder, how excited would you be if you heard that your bank was taking risks, giving some companies that you think might not survive money, which means that when you go to collect your money from the bank, it might not be there. And so the bank has a certain risk appetite because of the nature of the money that it's received, and it's structured to operate that way. And so what it means is that it's looking for businesses who can pay back the money that they've given. Cash flow is a priority. And as much as possible, they will want to lend in a way that is securitized so that if something happens, they're not losing out entirely. Why? Because they don't want to explain to you that they were trying to help another company when you came to collect your money, and that's why they don't have your money. And so lenders will look a lot at what compliance means to lenders, will look a lot as, not just how you're registered, whether you have your licenses and so on, but how do you manage your books to the governance side? How do you manage your books? Like, how are you handling the administration of your operations? How much are you aware of what's going on within your business that if things start to go wrong, you can realize early enough and start to preempt and react, versus, a situation where, you're effectively kind of winging it. You're doing your business, you're hustling to grow it. You're not paying too much attention to those things because, things are busy, life is hard. But then once you start to look for external investors, that's not enough. And so one of the challenges we have in this environment a lot is a lot of people will start businesses because, they need the income. It's not necessarily they're starting businesses because they've identified a problem they want to solve. It's more about the income. And it's not that that's a bad thing, but the challenge is the way you kind of build an organization, if at all it's an organization, as opposed to just maybe a business or a trading concern. The way you build that versus somebody who is setting out to solve a problem, realizes from day one that they don't have all the resources they need. As early as possible, they're going to want to get resources from other people. And so they're going to build that business with the mind of, I'm bringing in other people, whether it's lenders, whether it's equity investors, to kind of support this journey. The way you build those two sorts of businesses are different. And so a lot of times what you will find is people start out with the, I need income, I'm hustling situation. There tends to be less governance there. There tends to be less compliance thinking around there. And then 1, 2, 3 years or even months down the line, you think to yourself, okay, I need to go to an investor, an equity investor. They're not going to ask me for security like a bank. They understand that I'm not yet profitable, depending on the sort of equity investor it is. They are high-risk investors, which is true. But that doesn't mean that they're taking unstructured risks. So they still want to see, what are the plans for your business? How have you managed it? How have you tracked your costs? How have you tracked your revenue? What are you planning to do with this business over the next 1, 2, 3 years? How much have you thought through those plans? Is it just that you're saying, today, my revenue for last year was 100 million. I want to make it 1 billion in the next 5 years. That's a great goal. But how much have you thought through what it will take to get you there? And how much have you started to put things in place to get there? Investors will look for those sorts of things. They will look for somebody who is willing to learn. They'll look for somebody who is willing to have a partner alongside them. You're used to making decisions about how you run your business yourself independently. It's your business. How willing and ready are you to have to kind of, even if not ask permission, because not all investors will have control, but at least inform people, get their approval somehow to say that this is what we're going to do, this is how we want to spend money, and they say, okay. As simple as it sounds, and as easy as you might feel like that's not a problem when you're in the middle of the need as an entrepreneur. Some people struggle with that, when the time really comes, and it's kind of like, no, this is what I want to do. I'm seeing the opportunity here, and somebody is saying, no, but I don't see the opportunity. I'm not sure you're ready. Like, let's think this through. And you're like, time is going. My competitors are coming. And, those sort of things are where you find friction starts to happen, or people kind of face the realities that they're not as ready as they thought they were initially. And a lot of that ropes back into either compliance on one side, which is a lot more kind of the regulatory end, like what are you supposed to have done to operate in this space? You know, if you're in the financial services space, what sort of license do you need? Is it an insurance license, a banking license, an agent license, you know, an issuer license, a switch license, whatever? Do you have that in place? Like that's on the compliance side. Are you tax compliant? You know, a lot of entrepreneurs will say that, why pay this money to the government that's not providing the support I need? I will use it to grow my business. The challenge with that is for institutional investors can't deal with that. Like you need to be compliant, because even if they understand where you're coming from, the truth is that one day, as you become that 1 billion business, somebody will see you. Like if you operate in a place like Lagos, you know that even if you're operating a business out of a residential property, one day you won't know how one tax guy or one marketing agency guy is going to knock on your gate and say, I've heard that this something limited is operating out of here. That's the day they're going to start looking, okay, what taxes have you paid? And so the profits that the investors are expecting are suddenly going to the government. You know, those are risks that they can't take. That's why they want to know that you are compliant. You know, if, for instance, one day you want to go to Gochi and say that, you know what, I'm thinking of listing on the exchange. I mean, your compliance has to have track record. It's not even that you want to start complying. It has to have track record before they can put you on a public exchange where, you know, people that don't have the time or energy to do any kind of due diligence are just saying they like what you're doing, they're putting money. You know, the systems, it's then the stock exchange that makes sure that you've done all you need to do to be there. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, I mean, that's how, those are some of the reasons why investors will really look at compliance and governance. And to just circle back to the point about different types of capital providers, I use an example with debt. I use an example with equity where people are taking higher risks. Even there are different types of equity. You know, there is venture capital, which is the example I mentioned, where the investors don't even expect you to be profitable. All they expect is that you're tackling a really big problem. You have you can demonstrate that you're in a good position to really solve that problem, and that you can do that quickly, because they're not investing for your profits, they're investing for your growth. And so it needs to be a big scale, something you can execute quickly to really attract venture investors. But private equity is different. Private equity wants to know that you're profitable. And you know, they're not necessarily going to be as aggressive on growth as venture capital. So again, see, the risk they're taking is different. So the venture capital guy is taking a huge risk because you're not even profitable yet. You could fail, and not even for your own fault. And we've seen that businesses that we've heard a lot about 4 or 5 years ago, all of a sudden we're not hearing about them. You might not hear the sort of demise of the business being announced, but it happens. And so they want that big appreciation in value to compensate for that really big risk. Private equity wants appreciation in value, but they're looking at your profitability as well. And so they're not as aggressive in terms of their returns, because even though they're taking a huge risk on equity, it's still a more moderate risk than what the venture capital investors are typically taking. And so it's important for entrepreneurs to understand this, because if your business is in the stage where your growth profile is more private equity, even if you're early stage, or the scale of problem you're tackling is not that big, but because you're early stage and you hear that VCs are giving money, you're going to talk to VCs, then you hit that, you know, point of frustration, because they might say this is interesting, but it's not for me, or this or that, and you're like, these investors are not giving money. It's important to understand who they are giving money to and why they are giving that person money. And it helps you to understand that, okay, there are 5 investors here. This is the only one that I need to talk to, because this is the only one that gives money to the sort of thing that I'm doing, the stage that I'm at, the risk that I'm asking them to take as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that thorough rundown of like different types of capital. I especially love the Jollof Abula example. I'm not going to forget that anytime soon. Emmanuel, I mean, obviously you are in the thick of it, you are having conversations with potential investors, regulators. As a product developer, what would you say has been unique about your approach, how your story has evolved, how you've communicated your growth to these potential investors?
Yeah, so if I was to start from right from day one, so before I received any funding or any sort of attention or anything like that, I personally was always afraid of almost telling people my idea because I thought it was gonna, be so novel, take over the world, and I don't want someone to take my idea from me and then make it into their own thing. So I'd say like the first hurdle is getting over the fact that, if you do want your idea to be out there and you want customers to start using your product or your service, you're eventually going to have to start telling people and letting them know that, hey, this is what you're building, this is what you're making. So if that's a fear for anyone, I'd always start with speaking with family or friends. Now that would just help you understand the language and the terminology that you need to apply or use when you're talking about your idea. Now, I'll be honest, you'll probably mainly get positive feedback because they're your family or your friends. They wouldn't want to tear your idea down too harshly. But if you're looking for more critical feedback that you can actually use and apply to your idea, then that's when you need to start thinking about, okay, who are your users? Who's your target market? Who's your customers? Who are your consumers? And go speak to them, whether that be you showing your product to these people or talking about the idea, get their feedback first, and then understand what they're trying to say, and then go back and iterate and improve your service or improve your product. And it's that journey of almost like a cycle or a circle of making an MVP or making a prototype, showing it to your customers, getting their feedback, and then improving that MVP, and then so on and so forth. So that's one journey and one cycle I've had to go through quite a lot. And it's definitely helped me in terms of when it comes to applying for awards or applying for grants or speaking to investors, saying that, okay, here I've spoken to my customers already, and this is how I've adapted and changed the idea over the time. So from the first month to the 6th month, you can see it started off this small thing, and now it's reached this level here because I've been constantly engaged with my customers, and it's evident in that process and then that growth. But yeah, like I said, I feel like the fundamentals is always understanding your product, but also making sure that your customers understand it too, so that you can then use the right terminology and right, pitching style, presentation style when it comes to speaking to investors or accelerators or those who provide grants and funding as well.
Fabulous. Thank you, Emmanuel. And just a note, everyone, please type your questions in the chat if you have any questions for the panelists, so we can answer them as we round up the conversation. So Ago, this is, I think, a good point to bring you in, because obviously, as someone is transitioning, as they're developing their business, a big part of that is leadership and mentorship, showing them how to share their message, how to be more creative and innovative. What would you say have been any of the concerns you've had around the quality of innovation these days from startups that you see emerging?
Hello, sorry, I didn't hear the last statement. There was a little.
No problem.
Your last
So I was just
statement,
saying that. So from your perspective, from the perspective of someone who's working with youth in the startup space, what would you say have been maybe any challenges in terms of the quality of innovation you're seeing from founders these days?
Okay, thank you for that question. So in terms of the quality of innovation, because basically we work with a lot of young people, and one of the attributes of young people is that they are high risk people compared to the older generation. As you tend to grow old, your risk appetite reduces. And when you are young, you tend to try everything. And in doing that, most of the people that we have worked with have come up with kind of very, very interesting ideas that have attracted good funding. So for example, we have a program where we call the Orange Corner Nigeria, in partnership with the Kingdom of Netherlands. And so they provide funding for startup, and novel ideas and all that. And so far, we have series of young people who have been able to demonstrate some level of innovation and have been able to attract funding. And so we provide funding. These partners that work with us provide funding from 5,000 euros to about 20,000 euros to us, like a seed capital to fund their ideas. And so I must also mention that about 80% of those funds is grants, while 20% is like debt. So once you can pay the 20%, the remaining part of the funding is provided for you. And this is structured in a way to ensure accountability, to ensure that you demonstrate discipline in the way you use that funding. So a lot of young people from agriculture to service, to hospitality, you see them even to the creative art, for example. And so there was one of our entrepreneurs who did this laptop bag with some local material. And it was very, very, very beautiful, very beautiful. And he came to showcase his product. So we encourage them as much as possible to bring their product to class, and also use that opportunity to sell their product within the network that we create for them. So far, we've had a lot of young people that have they are really innovative. However, what we provide for these young people is, ideas are not enough. It is not enough to be innovative. You also need some level of support and systems that ensure that innovation is sustainable. So one of the key things, philosophy for our, when we train entrepreneurs or when entrepreneurs go through our program is sustainability. So whatever innovation that you are bringing on board or whatever novel your idea is, the question is how sustainable is this idea? And so those are some of the things that we ensure that the entrepreneurs work to see that their ideas can move from ideation to startup and growth phase, and even possibly scaling their ideas beyond the current location, their current geographic location, using technology and whatever resource they need to do that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And I've made some solid points in terms of the need for accountability, and ideas are just not enough. You also need to have a structure around it, a system around it that supports it. So on that note, Gochi, I'm just wondering, could you tell us a bit more about the Ethics First initiative? Because obviously trust is a big part of, financing. So could you kindly share with us a little bit more about that before we get into some of the questions in the Q&A?
Okay. Yes, that was one thing Tony had mentioned, that an investor wouldn't touch you, even with a long pole, if it doesn't see structures, if it doesn't see things that will encourage him or let him know that he's not going to lose his money, just because you're not compliant with something. You don't have the structure to mitigate any risk that may come to you. And so that's where Ethics First comes in. Ethics First is an innovative platform that helps to improve transparency and scale access to African businesses. And the term and the adjective African, not just Nigerian, businesses, to show the commitment, to higher standards of governance, anti-bribery, and corruption. And so that's what it does. It is also based on internationally recognized standards, so that and aligned so that it fits into businesses and emerging markets. So for every company, for companies that want to come into that, all that's required, is is that first of all, the lists, that's a term, the list on the platform. Why is that? Because one is you want to demonstrate to the investor that I can be trusted, and these are things I need to do. So ethics teaches you on those things you need to do to prove to the investor that your business can be trusted in. And so they start by, first of all, registering on the platform, which is listing, and then they'll sign an integrity pledge. So why do you sign an integrity pledge, right? It is to confirm and to affirm, that, hey, I am committing to showing that my organization has integrity. Okay, so when they do that, the ethics first is in 3 levels. We've got the green, the silver, and the gold. So in terms of the green is actually you reading and accepting the integrity pledge, to confirm that, yes, affirm that, yes, I am ready to commit, the company is ready to commit to good governance and integrity. Then you go on to the silver stage. That silver stage is where you complete risk portfolio, risk management portfolio, where you're making sure that the risks that are in your, for instance, so you talked about tax. So do you have the tax papers? Have you done your tax? Do you have those things ready, depending on the investors you're looking at? Because that's one thing they would have. 2, in terms of anti-corruption, do you have the measures that will tell your staff members what they should do and not to do in terms of bribery? I'll give you an example. Is we are aware of a company that just had an issue now with the government because people passed money through the organization and it was boiled down to money laundering. And hey, you're wondering how can? It's just because somebody didn't put in place, some measures to educate the staff members and even themselves, identify those activities that could lead to such fines. And then so it's important that when those things are in place, it proves to the investor that yes, you're knowledgeable, you are aware, and you have put in place things. So it encourages me to invest in that organization. So once you've done that, the 3rd level is the gold, which is where you're saying, and let me use an example. If it's like it's like saying that, oh, I want to learn about investments, and so I'm going to do a course on wealth management, right? That is the green level. And then you go on to do a training on wealth management. That is the silver level, where you're showing that I have the knowledge and I have the skill. But then to prove to the international body and to prove to everybody that you are well skilled, what do? You take a professional exam. So that shows everybody that, hey, I've been qualified to do this or to perform this activity. So with the gold, you are permitting an external auditor to come in and check on your documentation and on the measures you have to say yes, indeed, and put a stamp of approval to say yes, indeed, you are ready, and which you can proudly show to the investors to say, I'm not just telling you that I've done it, I'm not just showing you the documentations, I have gotten approval on that. So that's what ethics first does. So it helps you to build that trust. Have I overshot my time?
It's quite all right. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but there is a link to ethics first in the chat. So for anyone who wants to learn about it, please feel free to follow up on that. I just
want but to even before, just to add one more thing, we can help to also get them registered and provide more information, so they can contact us at X Academy, and we can also help them to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ugochi. So I think let's just quickly run through the question before we get final pieces of advice from our panelists. We have a question from Samuel. So he's asking, he'd love to know if development partners and innovation hubs are looking into working alongside government agencies for the best possible ways to do business registration. So I guess, Agogo, do you have any insight on that? Just a quick 1 minute.
Okay, so definitely we constantly work with government agencies. We also work with, we have also some professional legal consultants that also help to facilitate a business registration. Like I said in my previous comments, that a part of our program is also to help our entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs to get their business registered, which is what we have done across all our programs.
Fantastic, thank you. I think someone also had a question about getting a startup lawyer, but I think that would be somewhat related to a number of the services one would get around that point in time. If there are no other questions, I would like a piece of advice from each of our panelists in terms of youth innovation. What is your advice, innovator? Well, one piece of advice would you give? Ugochi, can start with you.
What else, Isioma? For me, would be build capacity. Build up your capacity. Don't just go because, like Emmanuel said, side hustle that I want to now have invested. And somebody says, oh my goodness, you can expand. And then I say, oh, okay, yeah, let me start. You know, build capacity first, right? Be knowledgeable, know what you need to do. You know, like I said, have compliance and governance in mind and get it sorted out. Come to ethics first and, you know, let's help you out. Thank you. And X Academy, let's help you out. Thank you. That's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you. I go last piece of advice.
Okay, so to young innovators out there, I will highly recommend, apart from capacity that Ugochi talked about, is mentoring. It's very important that I love a quote that says that if I've seen farther than others, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And so it's very important that young entrepreneurs who are very, very innovative must do that, must try to have mentors. I mean, people who have gone that path before, so that they can reduce some of the failures and mistakes that usually characterize early stage businesses and all that. So that's just my 1 second.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Agogo. Toyin, final piece of advice.
Thanks. I'm trying to pick one out of a couple. I would say one thing I would say is plot your course. And what I mean by that is think ahead about what you're trying to do. Not because you can think about how it will happen, but it helps you to identify things that you might not have thought of that you then need to start acting on earlier than you would have. To the example that I used earlier, where you start a business to just kind of make money, and later on you find it difficult to kind of formalize it enough to bring investors. So just think ahead and then look at what that means now. The other thing I would just say is that learn how to deal with failure and rejection, because if you're building a business, those two things will be part of the journey. If you're innovating in something, you will find failure along the way. You will be rejected along the way. And just think of those things as commas, not full stops.
Fantastic. I love it. Emmanuel, we are ending with you. What's your piece of advice for your fellow young innovators?
Yeah, sure. So I'll say my biggest tip would be to make sure you network as much as you can. Whether you're speaking to people who are older than you or younger than you, there's plenty of knowledge, skills, and experience that can be shared and gained from each other as well. But even more importantly, even if they're not in your field, so let's say you're into fashion and you're speaking to someone who's into finance, it doesn't mean that you don't need to speak to them for the rest of your life, not at all. What it is, it's you may find down, later in the future that someone's asking you, oh, do you know a finance guy? And like, oh yeah, I do actually, let me connect you guys and bridge you guys and bring you guys together. And the more people see you as the bridge, you then will also be bridged to other people who you might need help in starting a business or helping others in ideas and such. So definitely make sure you network as much as you can, speak to people, attend events, virtual like this one, go to exhibitions, go to universities, and just get your name out there. And just to quickly add on, I just had a question here about, how do you best communicate your idea at the idea stage? What I would say is key to that is just making sure you have a prototype. So in the sense that if it's something physical, make sure you can actually make something, whether it's being 3D printed or laser cut, or if it's something that is digital, then there's plenty of tools like Figma or Canva or Adobe XD that you can use to have something that is actually tangible and your customers or your investors can actually use and see in front of them and see why the value is there. But yeah, those will be my 2 little tips.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And thank you to everyone on our panel. Apologies if we couldn't get to your question. We ran a little beyond our time. Joshua, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm sure everyone on the panel had a great time. They're smiling, so we'll take that as a yes. So yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Welcome back. Still waiting for others to join in. All right, awesome. I think we have everyone back now. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope it's been a great time. So sorry that we're taking more time, unlike what I've said earlier, but this has been a 1.5 hour session, and I really want to believe we've had a great time. And of course, for the networking part, it's short, but we are hoping that we can cultivate this further. So if there are ways you think we can be helpful, if there's some interesting conversation that came up from the conversation that you believe that Innovate UK KTN can help, cultivate and ensure that this translates to something tangible, please feel free to reach out to us. And yeah, so we're going to end this session now. There is a poll that will come up on your screen now, just to know in terms of who you met with and if there are potential opportunities coming up. But after the session, you also receive a survey. Personally, for me, I'm interested in this, so that would be good if you can fill the survey that comes to your email after the session in terms of how the session went and if it's something that you would like to have more of. But for now, please, let's fill the poll, coming on your screen very quickly. I would like to know who you spoke with. Also about the opportunities I had mentioned earlier in terms of grants and others, please feel free to reach out if you think the work that you do align with some of those. Happy to actually facilitate some connections if there's a need to do that. To our panelists again, we really want to appreciate you. Thank you so much for this session, and we hope that in future when we reach out to you, we're still going to, have you join us again. Thanks so much. Keep, filling the survey, and I hope Farah could, put up, the music that we had earlier, even as we leave this session. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again some other time.